Heliopolis was one of the oldest cities of ancient Egypt, the capital of the 13th or Heliopolite nome of Lower Egypt. It is now found in the suburb of Ain Shams at the northeast edge of Cairo. The ancient Egyptian cult center Iunu, named On in the Hebrew Bible, was renamed Heliopolis by the Greeks in recognition of the fact that the sun god Ra presided there. Iunu is mentioned in the pyramid text as the House of Ra. Heliopolis has been occupied since the pre-dynastic period, with extensive building campaigns during the Old and Middle Kingdoms. Today it is mostly destroyed. Its temples and other buildings were used for the construction of medieval Cairo. Most information about the ancient city comes from textual sources. The only surviving remnant of Heliopolis is the Temple of Re-Atum obelisk located in Al-Mis'ala in Al-Matariya, Cairo. It was erected by Senusret I of the 12th dynasty, and still stands in its original position. The 68 feet high red granite obelisk weighs 120 tons. Location: beneath the maze of busy narrow streets of northeast Cairo, about 15 to 20 meters down, lie vast hidden remains of ancient Heliopolis. The modern inhabitants are mostly middle and lower class Egyptians. The site of ancient Heliopolis lies predominantly in the northern Cairo suburb of Al-Matariya, and also covers the districts of Ain Shams and Tel Al-Hisn east of the Nile. It also straddles the Cairo Metro line 1.5 kilometers west of the edge of the 20th century modern Heliopolis, a suburb in the district Masr el-Gedida. The site of Heliopolis has now been brought for the most part under cultivation and suburbanization, but some ancient city walls of crude brick can be seen in the fields. A few granite blocks bearing the name of Ramesses II remain, and the position of the Great Temple of Re-Atum is marked by the Al-Mis'ala obelisk. Archaeologists made recent tomb discoveries underneath. Etymology: the name Heliopolis is of ancient Greek origin, lambda iota omicron upsilon pi omicron lambda iota sigma, meaning city of the sun, as it was the principal seat of worship of the sun god Ra and the closely related deity Atum. Originally, this ancient city was known by the Egyptians as Iunu, from the transliteration Iwnw, probably pronounced *karmanu, and means pillars. In Biblical Hebrew, Heliopolis was referred to as On or Orn, ancient Greek, new, worship. The chief cult center of Ra was Heliopolis, where he was identified with the local sun god Atum. Through Atum, or as Atum Ra, he was also seen as the first being and the originator of the Ennead, consisting of Shu and Tefnut, Geb and Nut, Osiris, Set, Isis and Nephthys. History: Egyptian Heliopolis. The Egyptian god Atum was the chief deity of the city Iunu, who was worshipped in the primary temple, known as Per-Aati and Per-Atum. Iunu was also the original source of the worship of the Ennead pantheon, although in later times, as Horus gained in prominence, worship focused on the syncretic solar deity Ra-Harakti. The main cult of Ra was in Heliopolis. However, the high priests of Ra are not as well documented as the high priests of other deities. The Al-Mis'ala area of the Al-Matariya district contains the underground tombs of high priests of Ra of the 6th dynasty, which were found in the southeast corner of the Great Temple of Ra-Atum archaeological site. During the Amarna period, Pharaoh Akhenaten introduced monotheistic worship of Aten, the deified solar disk. As part of his construction projects, he built in Heliopolis a temple named Wet-Jes Aten. Blocks from this temple were later used to build the city walls of medieval Cairo and can be seen in some of the city gates. The cult of the Nevis bull, an embodiment of the god Ra, had its center here, and possessed a formal burial ground north of the city. Egyptian mythology, and later Greco-Roman mythology, said that the phoenix, after rising from the ashes of its predecessor, would bring the ashes to the altar of the sun god in Heliopolis. This image to the right is a reconstruction that was worked up from the early 19th dynasty base of a model temple gateway in the collection of the Brooklyn Museum, decorated with representations of King Seti I making offerings. The bottom of this model has been cast from the original and painted brown to match its quartzite stone. The statues, flagstaffs, pylons, and sidewalls, all of which were lost from the original, have been reconstructed to fit the depressions in the base. The result simulates the basic elements of a typical approach to a temple of the New Kingdom. Greco-Roman Heliopolis. Heliopolis was well known to the ancient Greeks and Romans, being noted by most major geographers of the period, including Ptolemy, Herodotus and others, down to the Byzantine geographer Stephanus of Byzantium. Greek-era Alexander the Great, on his march from Pelusium to Memphis, halted at this city, and, according to Macrobius Baalbek, or the Syrian Heliopolis, was a priest colony from its Egyptian namesake. The Temple of Ra was said to have been, to a special degree, a depository for royal records, and Herodotus states that the priests of Heliopolis were the best informed in matters of history of all the Egyptians. Heliopolis flourished as a seat of learning during the Greek period. The schools of philosophy and astronomy are claimed to have been frequented by Orpheus, Homer, Pythagoras, Plato, Solon, and other Greek philosophers. Ichthyophys was lecturing there in 308 BC, and the Greek mathematician Eudoxus, who was one of his pupils, learned from him the true length of the year and month, upon which he formed his octoroteride, or period of 8 years or 99 months. Ptolemy II had Manethor, the chief priest of Heliopolis, collect his history of the ancient kings of Egypt from its archives. The later Ptolemies probably took little interest in their father, Ra, and Alexandria had eclipsed the learning of Heliopolis. Thus, with the withdrawal of royal favor, Heliopolis quickly dwindled, and the students of native law deserted it for other temples supported by a wealthy population of pious citizens. By the 1st century BC, in fact, Strabo found the temples deserted, and the town itself almost uninhabited, although priests were still present. Roman era. In Roman times, Heliopolis belonged to the Augustum Nica province, whence it was sometimes distinguished as Heliopolis in Augustum Nica. This remains the name of its titular see in Catholicism. Its population probably contained a considerable Arabic element. In Roman times, obelisks were taken from its temples to adorn the northern cities of the Delta, and even across the Mediterranean to Rome, including the famed Cleopatra's Needle that now resides on the Thames Embankment, London. Finally, the growth of Fustat and Cairo, only 6 miles to the southwest, caused the ruins to be ransacked for building materials. The site was known to the Arabs as Ain Sams, more recently as Arab Al-Isn. Biblical Heliopolis. Heliopolis was the capital of the province of Goshen, country that comprised much of the northern Egyptian territory of the Nile Delta. This was one of 3 main store city locations that grain was kept during the winter months and during the 7-year famine discussed in the Joseph narrative of the Book of Genesis. The city gained recognition as place of bread. However, he made a word play on city of the sun by writing Ir-ha-hirs, which literally means city of destruction. These play of words were a prophetic description later reinforced by both Jeremiah and Ezekiel. The Hebrew name Beth Shemesh, where Beth means house and Shemesh means sun, was also used to describe Heliopolis by Jeremiah. He prophesied this city's fate specifically when he declared that the king of Babylon, Nebuchadnezzar, would shatter the obelisks of Heliopolis and burn the temple of the sun in fire. Jeremiah's contemporary Ezekiel reinforced this message by saying that the young men of Avon would fall by the sword. Like Isaiah, Ezekiel also made a word play on the original Hebrew name of Heliopolis that was used in the time of Joseph, the city of On. The Hebrew word Avon means folly, or iniquity, so that his reference implied temple of folly, or temple of iniquity.